Hi there, Jay Atwood here, and let's take a look at how we can use Doctopus and a Chrome extension called Goobric in order to assess student work. Now I've already used Doctopus to share out documents to each of my students. So in my sheet I have the links to each of their documents. So here's Jane's writing assignment. She really likes cupcakes. So I like to distribute blank paper templates using Doctopus because then I can use Goobric in order to assess them, as you'll see here in a little bit. It's kind of good practice to keep your drive organized, and I like to keep a folder each for rubrics and one for templates. So that way I know where they are and I can always go back and find them every time I'm running Doctopus or Goobric. So for my writing rubric, I've just created a simple spreadsheet here with the point values across the top and the categories down the side with each of the descriptions. It's quite simple. So all of the rubrics have to be formatted this way, and cell A1 should always be blank. Whole numbers across the top, descriptions down the side. So now that I have everything ready, let's go ahead and get started using Goobric. Now Goobric is not a script. It's actually an extension for Chrome. So this only works in Chrome. You need to go to the Chrome Web Store, and you can search for Goobric to install it. You can open it up and read more about it. There's a lot of information about how it works, details, some user reviews. So let's just go ahead and install that, authorize it. And what you'll notice here in the upper right hand corner is that anytime you're on a Google Doc, you'll get a Goobric icon, which means that you may be able to use it. But remember, you do have to distribute the documents with Doctopus first. You can't just use Goobric on any document that you have, even if the icon is in the omnibar. So if you look up here to the top in the right part of the omnibar, you'll see the Goobric icon. And that's how we'll access Goobric when we're trying to grade a student's work. The first step we'll need to do is to attach the Goobric to this assignment. That associates one of our rubrics with this particular assignment that's been distributed. If you go to the last step, Assess, you can attach a Goobric. So in this case, we've already installed the Goobric Chrome extension, but we do need to authorize it. Just follow along with the prompts. And now Goobric has been authorized. You can close this tab. After we've authorized the web app, now remember again, you only have to do that one time. You need to select your rubric. Down at the bottom, you get a preview of your rubric, and it only takes the appropriate columns and rows. And you attach the Goobric to this assignment. This will associate the two together. So there you go. You've attached the Goobric to the assignment, and there's some tips on this next pop-up. If all's good, you can close that. And the Doctopus panel has opened on the right. Here's where you can change the Goobric if you wish, as well as do some other things, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So if we take a look at our spreadsheet, we've got a couple new things. First off, it's added a second tab called Rubric Scores. This is a log file of every time that you have assessed a piece of student work using Goobric. And the column titles at the top come from my rubric. Back on the new roster page, which is where we started, to the right of the columns that were already there have been some new ones added. And if you hover over this note, it tells you a little bit about these. On this sheet, you get the latest scores. There is an option to switch to average display mode if you wish. The scores will go in here, as well as any comments. You can also use Goobric to assess the same piece of work multiple times, and you have a count here of how many times it's been assessed. So let's take a look at Jane's work and try to assess hers using Goobric. So when I'm ready to assess the student work, I click on the Goobric icon. It will look for the associated rubric, and if you haven't properly authorized the extension, you might get a little warning. Now, here we go. So it's read my spreadsheet, and it's pulled in the categories, the numbers, as well as all of the descriptors. And at the bottom, there's a place for comments and a checkbox where you can email the results directly to the student. Now here's a pointer. If you click outside, the Goobric goes away. So you have to have a good look at it before, because this does lay over the top. So now I can go through and award marks. Now notice as I fill in the scores, the numbers start to be shaded. If you do half marks, it'll shade both. Give some feedback, and you can choose whether or not you want to email. Once everything looks good, click on Submit and Paste to Doc. Now in the background, Goobric's doing a couple of things. First off, it is saving the scores on the spreadsheet. Second thing that it's doing, as I scroll down here, you can see it's pasted the rubric with the appropriate shading right into the document itself, along with a date and timestamp. Now if I'm grading many of these in a row, there's a new feature in which I can click Next to go right to the next student document. So here's Jenny's writing assignment on cats. And again, I click on the Goobric icon, it looks for the associated rubric, and once it pops up, I'll enter my marks. Now, word of warning here, if you click outside of the rubric, it goes away, which I showed you already, but unfortunately, if you haven't saved it, you'll also lose those marks that you've entered. So please be careful when doing this. So I can make pretty quick work of grading my student assignments, all right from within Google Docs. Another little tip, if you hover over any of these boxes on the rubric, you get a pop-up tip that shows you the text that's inside if you can't read it or if you want to read a little bit more closely. Let's go back to our spreadsheet and see what's happened. Now back on the spreadsheet, if I scroll over, I've graded Jane and Jenny's assignments, and those scores are automatically posted, along with the comments and the count. If I jump over to the rubric scores sheet, you'll see the running tally. You'll see the log of each time that it's been graded, the person who did the grading, as well as the time and date stamp. Now let's say I've given the students time to fix their writing. So they've made some edits, they see my rubric below and my comments. If it's time to assess the student work again, I click on the Goobric icon again, and instead of being blank, it pulls in the student scores from last time. I can change these if I need to, and submit it just like I did before. Now you can see that this rubric was pasted in the doc as well, so the students can see all of their assessments right at the bottom of the doc. Back in my log sheet, it's added a new row, regraded, and if I go over to the new roster sheet, it'll show the most recent scores, because that's what I have selected, and the most recent comment. Over on the right-hand side, you do have the option to display average scores. It'll calculate a mathematical average for each of those, or I can switch back to display the latest scores. A couple of other tools over here on the right that make assessment a little easier. One, you can embargo docs for grading. So it freezes the students, it locks them out, and gives them view-only access, but you are still able to edit. So the last edited column changes, and you can see that it's locked for grading. Now I can go back into the essays, assess them again if I wish, and the students can't make any edits. If you want to unembargo the docs, just click the button for Unembargo Docs for revision. And now students have been given edit rights again. Finally, when you're all done, you can transfer ownership of the documents back to the students. When Doctopus creates documents and shares them out, the person who ran the Doctopus script is the owner of those documents. This is a handy step for cleaning up your drive after you're all done. So as you can note here, it only works if students are on the same domain as you. So that's it. Goobric is a very powerful Chrome extension that can extend the functionality of Doctopus. Make sure you check it out. If you want to learn more, be sure to check out my other videos. Doctopus and Goobric are the work of Andrew Stillman from New Visions for Public Schools, and they're both really great tools for teachers. Happy scripting!